Thank you, Laura. So welcome, everyone. And for those of you who attended the first one, welcome back. My name is Jackie Crowshoe. My Indian name is Sakadusaki, and I'm enrolled in the Turtle Mountain Band in North Dakota. So for those of you that know, this is our second of the 3 series, and just really wanted to say thank you to those who were able to attend the last conversation. We had some wonderful feedback, and just again want to thank you all for sharing with us, and recognizing that we have the third one scheduled on May 30th, and so we're also hoping that you can join us for that one as well. So that's just some information for you to know, and now what I want to do is take some time and introduce our wonderful speakers. Those of you that did participate in the first one were able to hear what they had to share with us, and we had, the feedback was, give us some more. So here we are wanting to share with you more on some Indigenous healings. Today will be on individual and family, and I want to now take this time and introduce Rick and Ethleen. Rick, Two Dogs, and Ethleen Iron Cloud-Two Dogs. Could you guys introduce yourselves?
Good morning or good day wherever you're at. In our language we say Tanyaya Hipi. It's good that you came.
Good morning, everybody. This is Ethleen Iron Cloud-Two Dogs. Shina Ikikchui. I'm Oglala Lakota. Tanyaya Hipi. It is so good you are here. Thank you.
And Elsie, could you introduce yourself for us?
Everybody, Liana Dailuji, Apuran Nauro. My name is Elsie Boudreau. My Yupik name is Apuran, and in Yupik we say Liana Dailuji. Thank you so much for coming.
And Esther?
Hello, in Tliwiz, Esther Anne. Gaskadamukadi Nil, Shkobanakik, Nudabeg Zibayik, Wigubanawapskewi. My name is Esther Anne. I am Passamaquoddy of the Wabanaki, the people of the dawn. My family is from Zibayig, where the people who spear Pollock, and I live in Penobscot territory, the place of the White Rock.
Thank you. Now, as we did the last webinar, is opening it up with a prayer. And for those of you, out there in Indian country, in order to get us kind of our minds back into a good place, a good space, we always want to take the time and open it up with a prayer. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Rick. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pray in my Lakota language. Wasnia hecheleon petuki, Mgiglegok ta heche hoichiche, Oechi mitaki makawancha heche yotika vena, Unshvichakalana vichozoni, Vichakuk ta heche hoichiche, O mitakas.
Thank you. Ethleen?
Good morning again, everybody, and thank you, Mahasani, Mr. Two Dogs, for that wonderful opening blessing. Mahasani in our language refers to my other half. So very blessed to be in the company that I am in, with the presenters, with all of you participants. We hope that this presentation, the webinar, will be helpful in promoting and strengthening healing in your community, with yourself, with your family. I really would like to promote the term healing-informed care, healing-informed education, healing-informed, anything that we do should be healing-informed in response not only to trauma, but with respect to kinship, with respect to our responsibility in caring and compassion for one another. So I'm so thankful to all of you for creating this healing environment. So we'll go to the next slide. We do know that if you look at the screen there, then we do know that trauma doesn't just spring from an individual event, that there may be multiple events, there may be multiple exposures and experiences to trauma. So if you look at the left side of the screen, it depicts the path of unresolved intergenerational trauma. At the bottom, in the black circle there, we have a child that has been labeled, as hyperactive, disruptive. This child is cutting on him or herself. They have a diagnosis of ADHD or other psychiatric diagnoses. So how we relate to that child, for example, is based on those labels. And that's very unfortunate because this child is a gift from the Creator. This child is a blessing. This child has a lot of strengths. We could reframe all of those labels. Hyperactive is very high energy. How do we transform that energy into something that the child can use effectively? The child is disruptive. Maybe the child is assertive, for example. They interrupt in class, or they jump up and they want to answer right away, and they're looked at as disruptive. But we could also look at that as assertive. So there's different ways to reframe, those labels. It's very unfortunate that we do have that in our society, and if we look at where that came from, for example, maybe there are some exposures or experiences of trauma too that the child has experienced. We might look at the parents and what they've been through, and in this example, then we see that the parent may be a Vietnam veteran. They have post-traumatic stress disorder, and this post-traumatic stress disorder has not been treated effectively, so it's expressed in a lot of different ways, some of them negative, and the child might feel that, and it might be something that is put on the child. So the child has not only their experiences of trauma, but also their parent that has some unresolved trauma. Now, if you look at the grandparents in this example, then many of our parents and grandparents have been through World War II, and they've seen a lot of trauma, a lot of violence. They come home to the community, and there weren't any resources to really address that, and particularly in a cultural sense. In addition to that, they may have trauma from boarding school experiences. So there's multiple layers of trauma there. Now, that's 3 generations there that have experienced trauma. Now, let's look at the great-grandparents. So in this example, some of you might have heard of the 1890 Wounded Knee, South Dakota massacre, where over 300 of our relatives were murdered on December 29th, 1890 by the U.S. Army. So we have that unresolved trauma. Many of our people that have survived that have not had the opportunity to address their grief, their loss, their trauma, and it gets passed down. We, as Lakota people, believe that everything has a spirit. So grief, loss, trauma have a spirit. And we have to really look at that whenever we talk about healing, because healing doesn't just involve ourselves, like our own individual selves. We need to look at our family members, our community members, our parents, look they've been through, our grandparents, and how much of that do we carry? That's something that I don't think that we address enough. We don't really look at, what the impact of trauma is intergenerationally. So now that's, the negative side of it, what we endure, what we come through life with, that impacts our children. But there's also the path of intergenerational strength and resiliency. So I'm going to turn it over to Mahasani, Rick, to discuss that.
Well, one of the things we have to remember is back in the time of our grandparents, a lot of our ceremonies, even our language was banned under the Indian Offenses Act of 1878. So we were not allowed to practice our healing ceremonies. And whoever was caught practicing would become incarcerated a lot of times. So a lot of our ways went underground, and a lot of the people, the families, the bone keepers and the wisdom keepers went underground, but they continued to hang on to their ways. So these people have, in our society today, these parents, these people have are becoming important because there's pockets of extended families and families that still remember the ceremonies, the language, and how to do different things to help ourselves. So we hung on to that, and through the generations, we still utilize that. It never stopped among a lot of people, a lot of families. But now more and more people are becoming aware, and more and more people are turning back to the traditional ways to help themselves. And a lot of our teachings and the deeper meanings of our worldview is embedded inside the language. So a lot of people are relearning. There's a language revitalization among our people. So Black Elk, the great holy man, foresaw in his vision that we would suffer immensely for generations. And then in the seventh generation, the people will return to spiritual traditional ways, and we will survive as a people if we go back to our traditional and spiritual ways. So this is a part of a prophecy that we're living through at this time.
Thank you for that, and I think we really need to acknowledge the path of intergenerational strengths and resiliency. That if we do inherit, some of the trauma through the generations, we also inherit the strength and resiliency of our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents. And I see a comment from Cal Boyd. Thank you for that. I like that word better than trauma-informed. And I think you're referring to the healing-informed term, and I really like that you like that, Raquel, just because I'm trying to, promote the importance, the critical nature of our language. So, as I said in my part of the presentation, if you look at that black circle on the screen there, our children get labeled. Do those labels become self-fulfilling for them? Do they say, well, I'm, hyperactive, I'm disruptive, I have ADHD, and that's how they identify themselves. And they do not really, we don't really promote looking at their strengths, their skills, their capacity, to build on their strengths. So I think that's something really, really important that we have to look at, is the language that we use, looking at the not only trauma-informed but also healing-informed. How are we going to promote that for our children and our coming generations? So I would like to turn it over to Rick again to talk about how our community, one of the things that we're doing, to promote that healing, informed response.
Okay, several years back, I and some of my friends, adopted relatives, grandsons, nephews, got together and we came up with the idea of having a camp where we would bring young men that experienced trauma, and we call it Lakota Koshkala Kawichai Wipitapi, meaning bringing the young men together, and they sleep in teepees. And one of the first thing that they do is they go through what is called a wopakinte in our language, meaning they go through a spiritual cleansing. So they go into the sweat lodge, they come out, and they're wiped off with sage, and then they burn their old clothes and they put on new clothes, which signifies a new beginning and a new step towards healing. Another thing they get is a spiritual name, a name that they will carry throughout their life, and they're given a feather and a medicine wheel, which is blessed, and through this way they will carry this name through their life. And all of the names are beautiful, strength-based names that kind of marks their path in life, that instead of these negative labels, they're given a positive name, that is we believe and pray that it will be self-fulfilling, that they become what their spiritual name says. And then they're also given teachings on how to make like a bow and arrow. They're taken on a buffalo hunt. They watch how the buffalo is processed, field dressed, and then also they go through a healing ceremony through one of our traditional ceremonies called a luampi. They're doctored inside that ceremony, and if they underwent trauma, we believe that they lose their spirit. When a person loses their spirit when they go through trauma, so their spirit is called back. So this year, our camp is at the end of May, and then we have another camp in early November. So they're given these teachings, and then at the end of the camp, we bring in an elder, and he gives them teachings on how to become a strong man and how to live in this world. So this is part of the camps. It usually lasts about 3 to 4, sometimes 5 days, and we have these young men ranging from 13 to 17, if you can see on the flyer on the screen there. And so we reach out to them and help them in this way, because a lot of our young people are growing up without a positive male role model, or they have no mentors in their lives today. So we've seen that it's real successful in helping them with their identity.
So we really encourage communities to take a look at this type of promotion of healing-informed response to trauma and a healing-informed community. So these are men that have decided to come together, not through any grant program or not through any tribal program or any other organized program, to respond to what our children are going through in terms of what my husband talked about. He mentioned that many of them don't have male role models, and so what they're getting are teachings from male relatives. And one of the things I'd like to mention is that the boys that are in the camp, they will be addressed by kinship terms. So Toshka, for example, is nephew. So the mentors that are volunteering there will address them by Toshka. The older men, like my husband and his older male relatives, will address them as Kakoja. Excuse me, I kind of have a sore throat, so I keep clearing my throat. I apologize for that. They address them as Kakoja, which in our Lakota language is grandchild or grandson, and they address each other as for using kinship terms. And why is that important? It's important because Lakota, again, We also have a children's healing camp for age 0 to 11, and we're doing that on June 29th to July 3rd. This is all volunteer-based, like I said, supported through donations, and it's a response from the community to the things that are going on in our community. We all know what's going on in our communities. We know we have a high child abuse rate. We know we have a high suicide rate, a high elder abuse rate, a lot of violence in our communities, but we know we have strengths also. We have people that are willing to volunteer their time. We have Lakota speakers. We still have our ceremonies. So let's use the strengths to promote healing in response to the negative things that are going on in our community. The other thing that using kinship terms promotes is boundaries. So if a young man addresses his younger relative in the camp as Misunkala, which in our Lakota language refers to little brother, or if they call each other, if they're the same age, they call each other Kahashi, which means male cousin, or they call each other Kola, which is a male term for a man-to-man or male-to-male friend. What they're doing is they're appealing to them as a relative. And when you appeal to somebody as a relative, then what you're saying is, I value you. And that in itself speaks volumes about the role and responsibility to one another as relatives. It can actually impact, decrease bullying behavior, if we call each other by kinship terms. So that's something that's strongly promoted in these camps. I know that we, there's a comment from Lucinda Mestis. Hello, you might be Toja or you might be Tepkashi. Toja in our language means niece, or Tepkashi is female cousin. So you're probably younger than me, most likely. So Toja, Lucinda, you're welcome to share it on social media. We only have capacity for 20 youth, just because, again, this is operated, implemented by volunteers and through donations. So we have to consider that too. So if there's any questions or comments, then we welcome them right now. And if not, then we can go on to our next part of the presentation.
Hi, Ethleen. Can you hear me?
Hi.
This is Esther.
Hi.
Hi. I was just wondering, I do work with Native men and women, adults who are incarcerated, and many of them, even though they grew up in our communities, don't know a lot of the ceremonies because they were too busy, like they would say, they were too busy partying and getting into trouble when they were kids to have paid attention and, maybe participated in something like this. Are you finding that too? Is there like a segment of adults that are disconnected as well and could gain from something like this?
Most definitely. I went into the women's prison here in South Dakota I believe it was in November, and many of the women there, young women and older women, the population is like 60% Native women, and many of them expressed a need and an interest to reconnect to their culture. And the reason I say reconnect is because we know these things. Lakota people believe that, we are born with the knowledge that if we were not, I'm hearing an echo. I don't know if you all are hearing that. But we're born with the knowledge, we're born with the language, and I really appreciate the late Lekshi, which means uncle in our language, Johnson Holy Rock, encouraging the people, saying, don't ever let people tell you that you don't know your culture, you don't know your language, and that it's dying. He said, it's in you. each one of you, you were born with it and you need to give it life. So I kind of envision like a plant, a plant that has a seed and the water, the sunshine that it needs to grow. We are that for each other, so every person has seeds that need that nurturing, that need that nourishment, that need that sunshine and medicine to grow. So how do we do that? So for like our relatives that are in prison, going in and helping them reconnect with, for example, the Istamani Witakiti Bakintapi, which is the wiping of tears ceremony that Lakota people have. Many of us have had multiple losses, traumatic, grief, and we have never had the opportunity to express that grief, to really, really cry and to have that support and comfort to do that. That's what the ceremony does for people that have had a loss. So I think our responsibility as relatives to the relatives in prison is to help them reconnect with that.
Holy One, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If there isn't, then we can go on to the next part of the presentation. Okay, so we'll go to Elsie. Thank you, everybody.
Liana, Rick and Ethleen, I think what you shared is beautiful, and it's very strength-based, and I really, really like how you talk about how our language is healing-informed, and how the labels, like even our relatives, when we say we're all related, that even the term with which we call people is important, because I know we cannot heal alone, and we need each other to heal. So I am honored to be part of this conversation and to hold you in my heart as dear relatives. And so, and I appreciate, just the foundation that everything has a spirit, that even the trauma and the grief, our resiliency has spirit, and how we're all planted with that seed, that we have that seed of culture, of who we are, and our job as relatives is to nurture that and to grow that. And I've worked with a beautiful elder, Rita Blumenstein, Dr. Rita Blumenstein, and she talks about how everyone is a flower. We're all different. And some of us are wilting, some of us are, standing tall, but that, so that's what that reminds me of, that we're connected, and we have the roots. Our roots are strong. We have roots of connection to who we are, connection to our ancestors, connection to that resiliency and that strength. And we've had that for thousands and thousands of years. And so, when we talk about healing, what we're really talking about is to make free, right? When we think of something, there's an injury or a disease, we're making it sound or whole. And I like to think of it like we're coming back to ourselves. And we're incorporating, if we take that seed, we're incorporating both the trauma but also the resiliency. Because the trauma does not define who we are. the trauma is part of what happened to us, but we are not the trauma. And so in that, when people go through trauma, and like how Rick said it, that they lose their spirit. And what we know is that trauma shatters a part of our spirit, and it's different for everybody, right? What we know is that, when people go through trauma, there's like a shattering of the spirit, and it's crippling. And we talk about how shame is crippling. And, I speak to that because I myself am a survivor of sexual abuse, and I feel like I'm at a place in my life where I know I no longer carry that shame. And I've, through a process, because it is a process, there's no like quick fix to this. It is a process. And through speaking my truth and finding my voice, having first acknowledged that I was a victim of sexual abuse, I had to get to a place where I could look at that shame, look at what was shattered within me, and name it and own it and say, and be gentle with that part of me in a way that was loving and compassionate, just as you would the teachings that you give to your children. Our Yupik ancestors would, they operated out of love and compassion to their children, and that was one of the first the first teachings. And so I had to operate in that same way, with that same energy of love and compassion, and to recognize that shatteredness, if that's a word even, but the part of me that was shattered, and to be able to put the pieces together, but then I also had to look at the strengths and the resiliency within me, and it was a process of integrating both. And it is in that integration that I have the language and I have that voice, and I know I stand here as a strong Yupik woman, connected to my relatives, connected to the land, to the earth, connected to each other, to my sense of Shamyo, the Yupik word for person of the universe, a spirit greater than us, an energy greater than us. And in that, we are all connected. So one of the things I had to do was to give myself permission and to recognize that there was a lot of grief attached to my healing. And it was looking at what happened to me as a child and the grief that went with, one, grieving my childhood, but grieving what I lost from having been sexually abused. Because it forced me to view my world in a different way. And I think it's really important to recognize as people go through healing, to give space, right? Find space, safe space to feel what is shattered and to be able to know, not alone, but know that it is possible, and anyone can heal. We have the capacity to heal. Until the day we die, our brains are forever changing, and our hearts, our spirits are connected to something greater than us. And in that, we are not alone. So when we talk about healing, we're talking about, being healthy And that means to be whole. That means you get to be yourself, to be truly who you are, with all the things that come with that. You know, the parts of yourself that hurt, but knowing that that's not all of you. You're more than that. And that when we talk about individual healing, family healing, everybody heals in their own way. Healing is different for everybody. And that healing belongs to you. It belonged to me. And I couldn't put it on someone else to heal me. It comes from within. And in that way, we are nurturing that seed. And in that way, we are all a garden of beautiful flowers with the ability to make a difference in the world. So, and, you know, when we talk about healing, we cannot heal alone. And I always, you know, I believe that wholeheartedly. And I want to acknowledge my husband, Tim. I know he's on the line. He's listening. And I from the bottom of my heart, I couldn't have done it without his love and his support and his belief in me. And with other people in my life. So when we talk about connection, the opposite of, so when we're not whole, we're shattered, and we can feel alone, we can feel lost, we can feel like we're going crazy, that no one cares, that, oh, what's the point? But the opposite of that, when we're in connection with ourselves, with each other, everything that's sacred, all, you know, just the fact that, I mean, all the people on this line, as we're sharing this process is sacred. You've entered into the sacred circle of healing. And that there's a sense of, like, it's almost like medicine for our spirit, for our heart, for our soul. And to surround yourself, give yourself permission to be gentle and loving and compassionate to yourself, just as you would a child that you love, and to relate to people, to come from that place. And we know all too well when people hurt, they hurt other people, and we have a lot of hurts in our community. And we can be that source of strength for each other. So I'm just going to pause and to see if people have any thoughts or comments. And just know that you're not alone as we go through this.
Thank you, Elsie. I really appreciate your comment about not being identified by or not being defined by the trauma that we've experienced. And I think as a people, I noticed that, like in research, then the research in Indian country is all about negative, negative deficit-based statistics. So we have a lot of research that shows, we have a really high suicide rate. We really have a high child abuse rate, and we have so much trauma, in Indian country. Yet there isn't, I don't see a lot of research on those communities and those individuals that are, thriving and despite the trauma, despite living in a community that is defined by trauma. And I think we have to turn that around. We really have to, because if you take children and sit them down and say, what does Lakota mean to you? Some of them might say, well, we're lazy, we're all drunks, we because that's the message that they hear. It may not be true for them, for their family. It may be true for other families, but they identify with that because that's the propaganda out there, and so I think that's, I really appreciate that comment that we cannot be defined by, the trauma that we've experienced. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethleen. And I think about so many of the people that I've talked to that also went through sexual abuse and how that part of them becomes like what they see and what they feel. It's so much bigger than the strength and the courage and the love, right? It becomes so all-consuming. And I healing is possible. That when we, when we take like if we had a problem, if we were to put like a dot in the palm of our hand and indicate that as a problem and put it close to our face, our eyes, that's all we can see. We don't see anything clearly. But when we put it away from us and take a look at it, we can see clearly, and that's not the whole perception or not the whole world. The whole world is not the problem, right? And I think when we feel shattered, it feels like that's our whole world. And it makes sense where people, it's almost like they go inside themselves and either want to hurt themselves or hurt other people, and that's how it comes out. And so part of that healing is acknowledging that trauma is not all-consuming, and that there's more to life, more to who we are than that problem. And many people carry that idea in their mind and their heart that that's all they are. And I think, when we talk about like your Lakota language being it's healing informed, that's exactly what we're talking about. You're giving them this notion, this reality that they're more than the problem, and that they are valued and they make a difference. And I think, as we go through life, in the time we are born, what we want is to be able to connect. And we want to matter, and we want to be valued. And, I myself, as a survivor, like looking at what happened to me, as a child, and many children do this, they turn it inward and blame themselves. And that's when the seed of shame is planted. And so it's speaking to that part of us that holds that and operates our life from that place, and knowing that part of that healing is understanding what that is and being able to see that there's more to life than that. And if anything, our culture, our traditions, our language, they help with watering that soul, watering that seed in a way that allows us to flourish, to become whole, to become who we are. So I'm looking at what was written. I was looking at that. Yeah, so people are asking for any kind of books or resources or articles, and to work with Native people. And I know we, as part of this process in preparing for this, because we know we have a responsibility when we open something up, we have to know that we can close it in a safe way. That we're creating a list of resources that could be used, and I believe we'll have that available. But one of the books, like because I was sexually abused by a Catholic priest, and I grew up Catholic and loved the Catholic Church. I no longer am a Catholic, but I believe I am a strong Yupik woman. That's who I am. The book, Wise Words of the Yupik People, We Talk to You Because We Love You. That book has become like my quote-unquote Bible. And it's a lot of what Ethleen and Rick talk about in terms of kinship and how we relate to ourselves, to each other, to the land, to the universe, to the world around us. And I think just being able to put that in perspective and knowing that the people that you work with who may be shattered, that the relationship that you have can be a vehicle by which they get to a place where they know there's hope to heal and that they're more than that shattered seed.
Thank you for that, Elsie. I'd also like to mention, too, that we are, like you said, developing the list of resources. And one of the resources that's going to be on the Tribal Information Exchange is the Lakota Mental Health First Aid Manual. Although it's recommended that the training, like in-person training, be taken to use the manual. It is a resource, and it does talk about, like the kinship bonds and the trauma, addressing trauma from a Lakota cultural perspective. And we're not putting it out there to promote the Lakota culture. We're putting it out there as an example of what other communities can develop for their own, using their own culture. And we know that every tribe, every culture have draped ceremonies, ways of healing that can be articulated in a format to be shared. And so that's our intent with that. I'd also like to respond to Raquel, to our relative Raquel's comment. Are there communities that are thriving? It is a sad reality, but are there communities? I can't see it anymore, Laura. I lost Raquel's comment. Can you move it back up, please?
The chat is unique to you, so you'd have to scroll up.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was moved. How do you do that?
So Ethleen, it says, are there communities that are thriving? It's a sad reality, but are there Native communities that are thriving in spite of trauma? Most communities are mired in their struggle, mired in trauma, mired in all of the social illnesses that we all know about.
I really appreciate that comment. Thank you, Elsie. And thank you, Raquel, for making that comment. That's very common. We get a lot of questions about how did we become the way we become? Why are our communities, like you say, mired in the struggle, mired in trauma, mired in all the social illnesses? And that's something, that we really need to explore. However, I think we've been taken down a path, like I shared previously, that, we tend to define ourselves by negative statistics because that's what is out there and that's what's studied. It's like looking looking through a lens that, a pair of glasses that was given to us to look at everything through, and it colors our worldview about ourselves. So, for example, whenever, our relatives had these very negative boarding school experiences, they were shamed about their identity. What they were told was, you're not good enough, you're not, you don't, you don't measure up to us, meaning, the non-native people. And so that tends to be believed, and then the shame, like what you mentioned, Elsie, is, I guess, becomes the identity. So we really need to look at, what lens are we looking through? I was commenting about, earlier about the camp, the boys' healing camp. That is a community in and of itself. So a community was created, a healing-informed community, to respond to boys that have been through all of these experiences and exposures to trauma. And this community is thriving. This community is healing-informed, and it was created. And I think that's the path that we have to go as a people, to create these healing-informed and healing opportunities for ourselves, for our children, for our families. And we also have to look for them, because I know they're out there. I know there's communities that are thriving despite the experiences of trauma. So thank you for raising that very critical question, Raquel. I really appreciate it. Are we about at our time, Laura or Jackie?
Yep. We're doing perfectly, and thank you, Ethleen and Rick, as well as Elsie. I think we're right on time, and I just appreciate some of the conversations and the questions in the chat room at all. And I just encourage others, if you have any comments or if you have any questions, particularly for this last sharing from Elsie, don't hesitate to either unmute or use the chat room and ask any questions or share anything you feel comfortable with. And while you are doing that, I just, that first webinar that we did, we really talked about connection. And today, we've heard about individual and just family healing strategies. And, I think also recognizing, as our presenters have shared, that, this occurs in so many ways. I know, ways that I continue to heal my spirit is just spending time with girlfriends, attending ceremonies, just being outdoors, dancing, and I really wanted to just say thank you, Elsie. When you talk about, ways in which to nurture, our shattered spirits, I think for me it was also changing the narrative. At times I felt like I let my trauma define me, and I kind of held on to that narrative, and that narrative of that trauma reinforced the pain. And, and from there I would become angry, and then that anger protected me. And I think today, 50 years old, I will be in a couple months, it's, I feel grateful that I've been able to look back and change that narrative, and I've been able to talk to that young Native woman, who was hurt, and continue to talk to her, because there's so many ways in which, we can be triggered individually, and I speak from my own perspective. So, with that, I just, again, today's conversation is really about that individual and family healing strategies. So I just want to ask, how are folks doing out there? Is there, again, I want to reiterate, as we did on the last call, is all of this is so personal, right? And I completely recognize and respect those of you out there that, really just keep it within your own space, in your own heart, in your own thoughts, and don't feel comfortable sharing. Absolutely. But if others want to share stories, if you want to unmute, if you want to include anything in the chat room and talk about ways in which you have healed, or individuals within your family, please use that space. One of the comments I'm reading right now is, I honor my healing through connections to others and to my culture. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else? While,
Jackie, this is Elsie. I just want to thank you for your comments too, and it reminds me of how how when you said the anger protected you, and how we have to be thankful for that, because our bodies, we know we have to be protected, and that's like one of the things that we do, and we create coping strategies or coping mechanisms that protect us. And when we get to a place where we're wanting to heal, some of those coping mechanisms don't work anymore. And so we have to find other ways of coping, healthier ways that promote that healing. And to, to actually thank that anger for protecting you. You needed that. And not to shame it, or, but to, you needed that to get to a place where you can be gentle and hold that little girl inside. And I think we just need to be mindful of that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I think through that protection, it kept people at a distance, and no longer did that need to happen for me. I needed people in my life. I needed love. I needed connection. And that is when I began to really kind of nurture that shattered spirit more and attend ceremonies. And so, yeah, I appreciate this conversation. It's also being vulnerable right now. I think that, being vulnerable is also having courage. And, again, I want to just keep folks who are putting some comments in the chat room. My favorite person, Margaret, she's talking about being grateful to the presenters for their courage and their gentleness in talking about healing, and encouraging us all to walk among our families and communities with that courage and that gentleness. That's right. Thank you. And as other people are typing, I'm just going to read a couple of stories that were shared with us. And one of them, and I just want to repeat, Ethleen and Rick, when you talk about how we address each other as relatives. Similarly, when I've been addressed as a sister by somebody that I strongly admired in the community, or a brother or a niece, it just warms my heart. It like when I got my name, it made my spirit stand strong. And so I want to call Tracy, who is my brother up there from Montana. He had shared with us about horses and healing. Shunka, horses are our relatives, and certain horses have spiritual healing powers. I have witnessed them heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The atrocities of child abuse victims, domestic violence, historical trauma, post-trauma stress, etc. The connection is real and very powerful. I, along with others, continue on a healing journey through our original ways of life. Some of us come from horse people, horse medicine, and we go to other horse nations people for support. We continue to see others heal, and that's healing within itself. You don't have to own or ride a horse to heal, as long as you have the right people in your life to help you with that healing journey. Horses are just one element of our healing. And with that, he sent a picture of his granddaughter hugging their late stallion Whiskey, who loves kids and healed war veterans. So I don't think Tracy's on the call with us, but I just want to thank my brother Tracy Ching King for sharing that. I also want to read Paulette Remingwolf. I'm glad you're on, Paulette. Thank you. Hello. She talked about honored by all of us sharing today and the presenters and thanking us. And An additional item to consider is developing wellness indicators that demonstrate when we are healing and moving towards healing. And she noted Rick, an interest in ceremony. So thank you, Paulette, for sharing that. Another story that we received, or picture that we received, is from Cindy Dayrider. She's from the Blood Tribe in Canada. She talked about, my healing is my heartbeat. They have shown me a path to connect to the source of all it entails. Ceremony, joy, tears, love, kindness, a motivation to heal all aspects of myself right now down to the cellular level. Every time I look at these and I hear these stories and I read these stories, it just, that in and of itself is healing, listening to how others are healing, how others are walking in this world. Here's another one from Lenny Hayes. Healing is my connection to my two-spirit identity. That I do not have to be ashamed of who I am because two-spirit people thrived and were honored before colonization. Healing also means working with others to bring that identity back into our tribal communities by education and awareness with others who identify as two-spirit or Native LGBTQ. Overall, being a helper is healing.
Jackie,
Yeah.
Raquel made a comment earlier about gardening being healing for her, and I think that's an area that we don't really look at in terms of, a healing resource, because in the Western thinking, then we need a book, or we need some kind of counseling model or a technique or a strategy, for healing, when the earth is right there, to contribute to healing. And I just really like to honor her comment about, gardening being healing, working with the earth, and, as far as like the earth having healing energies, that is why we're encouraged to sit on the ground during our ceremonies, because the Unjimaka, the grandmother earth, does have healing properties, healing energy, and by sitting on the ground, we receive that from her. And that's one of the beliefs or concepts in having these healing camps also, because the teepee, the tiiksha, the little picture that you see in the corner there on the left, lower left bottom of the slide, that isn't just shelter. It's shelter, but it also has a whole healing concept behind it. So sleeping in a teepee at the healing camp, sleeping on the ground, the Unjimaka, the grandmother earth, is contributing to the young people's healing. And it's not a, how would you say, it's not something that you'll find in a book, or, not a strategy, but just that alone itself is a very strong healing component. So I wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Ethleen. So on your screen now is just some other words and information that we have received from those of you out there who responded to either the first webinar that we did or some calls out that we've made into Indian country. I just want to ask, are any of you, do you have any relation to these words out that you're reading on the screen that you want to share, that you want to talk about? Some shy natives out there.
This is Elsie. I just want to acknowledge Lucinda's comment that I honor my healing through connection to others and to culture.
I know humor is I love that one. I just made a post on Facebook about laughter and laughing. And in fact, I had posted some pictures, and then somebody had shared Charlie Hill's. I don't know if some of you have watched his video on how Native women laugh. And so sure enough, 3 of the pictures I posted were, one of the ways in which Charlie Hill identified women laughing, Indian women laughing. Anybody else? I know you feel free to use the chat room.
Can you hear me? This is Esther. I was thinking about how sometimes when we learn so much about history and we learn about intergenerational trauma, and it's so sometimes it becomes kind of a burden, and I think sometimes we feel guilty that like in my territory here there were over almost 30 tribes, and there are 4 of us left now. And so sometimes I think we feel kind of guilty for that, and we feel like we should have to suffer as much as to match the sacrifice that our ancestors made for us so that we could still be here. And one of the best lessons I learned from meeting with Maria Yellow Horse Braveheart was, no, our what we need to be doing is the opposite, and we need to be having a lot of joy. That's what our ancestors wanted for us, and that's what we want for our descendants, is to be happy and to have joy. And it's almost like letting ourselves off the hook sometimes, and really feeling good about enjoying and viewing things like we talked about, that word thriving, right? To really live by intention and have that as our goal. To be that, because the Creator meant for all of us to be, have a zest for life. That's how we are when we're born, right? And to really experience that joy.
Absolutely. Good point, Esther. Thank you. So here's the question for you all. I would love to hear, what are ways you nurture and take care of your own spirit? You've heard from some of the speakers. You've read some of the stories and the images that were shared. And when we share with one another, we connect with one another. So don't hesitate. I think one of the hardest part about technology is, of course, I want to respect those of you that maybe are trying to unmute or maybe not fasting or typing as fast as you want. And so I apologize if I'm moving too fast and not giving you guys time to share. It's a tricky dance. But I appreciate it. Somebody commented about yoga. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Ceremonies, honoring my temple, my body through healing eating, healthy eating, and plant knowledge. Absolutely. Anybody else? Replacing social media with talking to people in person or on the phone. Boy, isn't that the truth. Being out in the mountains, watching the animals, enjoying the wind, the air, the beautiful environment. And yeah, and then also Paulette comments about, if she's not getting outside, she can feel the impact on her mood. I went for a hike on Sunday, and some of you who I'm on social media with, my girlfriend and I wanted to get out because it's beautiful here in Minnesota now, because we had a horrible storm, and we ended up getting lost. We thought we'd leave our cell phones at home just to not be distracted, and 10 miles later, and good thing, it was with a best friend, because, but I felt completely, a good exhaustion when I came back in. Another comment is being around young people and trying to keep up with them. Holding babies, yes, whenever I get the chance, sitting in the backyard, watching birds and rabbits. I love it. Excellent. So keep adding to the chat room. I'm looking at the time, it's 2:15, and so there's just a few more things that we want to be sure and share with you all. One of them is, of course, we mentioned it on the first webinar, and that is an Indigenous healing. We're calling it a quilt because the idea is really, in creating this quilt, we want to create a poster, and we want to use images that reflect Indigenous healing, and would like all of you guys to share your own images, with us to include on the quilt if you're comfortable. And hopefully we can, once we receive images, and we did receive some from the last webinar, and I thank you if you're on the call and if you shared. We want to eventually take them, add them, and then create a poster and share it for everybody so you can have it hanging and you can have that, that space and to be able to look at this quilt and to look at all the different ways that we as an Indigenous people are healing. So I ask you all to take a moment and, send us, I think we will send an email at the end, but send us your images. And again, I think they've asked before, like, what kind of images? And really, it's, as you can see, even on what's in front of you on the screen, those images can be anything. We have a young man listening to his elder talk. We have a dad with his baby on his lap as he's singing. We've got plants, we have foods, we have elders, we have folks who are running, canoeing, singing, dancing, riding horse, laughing. So whatever those are, but we really want this to be, a community, a connection. So it's important, especially, for those of you from the east, those of you from the south, the east, the west, like north. We would love to hear from folks from all directions. And we can easily integrate them into this quilt. So when you have it available to you and it's a poster, you can feel that connection to everybody through this. Another way of healing that was identified is sobriety, connecting with 7 directions. Mm-hmm. Oh, good. Laura put up her email address for those of you who want to send images, and I really encourage you all to send images. Again, part of it is to be able to see your story in this poster when it's complete. And then again, a reminder, of course, that we're going to have the third of the series on the 30th. And there we will talk about community and organizational healing. And some of what we get to learn about is some of the work that's been done with Arctic Winds Healing Winds, some of the work that's been done out east in Maine when it comes to truth and reconciliation and the community healing that occurred with that process. So that is on May 30th. We want to make sure you all register for that. And then one of the things that we have, Laura posted a link here, and I believe she also sent it out through email, of the recording of the first webinar. So she has that posted for you all to listen to take a look at, and share. I just put it on Facebook today because, again, I think that this conversation in and of itself is healing, and I just believe it's worth sharing and talking about, and so feel free to share these recordings with whomever. And then the other link here is an evaluation. Those of you that were on the last call, immediately following will be an evaluation. And we really read every single comment and took it into consideration when we planned the second one, as we will the third one. So I appreciate everybody giving us feedback, comments, what you loved, what you appreciated, what you need. All right. So are there any other questions that you have for us? So one of the things I'm going to do now, we did it on the last webinar, and folks really responded well to it. And I'm going to turn it over to Esther, who can just talk a little bit about some guided meditation. I think it really helped us all just to kind of center ourselves. We're all doing extraordinary work that can be extremely difficult. And so I appreciate Esther giving us this guided meditation. So for those of you that are able to, please, take part in this. Those of you that need to go on with your busy days, feel free to do that. And again, I want to thank from the bottom of my heart and have the utmost respect for Rick, Two Dogs, and Ethleen Iron Cloud-Two Dogs, as well as Elsie Boudreau and my sister and Esther here I'm going to turn it over to. So, and thank you all so much for participating and joining us today. So, Esther?
Thank you, Jackie. As I had mentioned on the first webinar, this guided meditation was created by me and Wabanaki Region, the work that we do in the prisons with inmates. Okay, so I invite you to sit comfortably in your chair, your back nice and straight, your hands placed comfortably in your lap, either palms up or palms down, whatever feels comfortable for you. Your feet planted squarely on the floor. Be relaxed with an upright posture. Take a deep breath in, hold it, and slowly let it out. Now I invite you to close your eyes or to simply lower and soften your gaze. First of all, just become aware of your environment. Become aware of what's around you. Be aware of the light coming through your eyelids, the sounds, the smells, the sense of space, the air touching your skin. Be aware and just acknowledge where you are. You are here now. Simply accept the presence of everything around you. Now let's turn our awareness inward to our bodies. Become aware of the back of your thighs resting comfortably on the seat of your chair. Feel the chair against your muscles and know you are supported. Pay some loving attention to your spine. Your backbone is flexible and responsive. Notice how it moves with every breath. Imagine a thread of light extending from the top of your spine through the top of your head and into the cosmos, disappearing into the stars. Remember, you are connected to all that is, and you are supported. Be aware of your breath in your belly. Relax in your belly muscles and become aware of the gentle rise and fall of your belly. Take one big cleansing breath in and release it with a sigh, letting go of any tensions in your body. They are free to leave. Inhale again slowly through your nose, expand in your belly, and breathe into your heart center. Breathe in knowing you are at peace, and breathe out with a smile, because right here, right now, you are happy. Notice how your mind becomes calmer. Your mind quiets with each breath. Next, become aware of your feet. Bring your thoughts into your feet. Notice your feet and fill them with awareness, becoming aware of different sensations that are present in your feet. And just relax, choosing to let go. You are supported by the floor beneath your feet. Now bring your attention to that floor. Imagine how it stretches out around you to touch the walls of the building, and how those walls extend downward into the ground. The firm foundation resting deeply in the soils of our Mother Earth. Imagine the earth beneath the building, how it feels, how it smells. Breathe in, knowing that you are supported upon this earth. Breathe out, knowing you are connected to our Mother and to all of her beings, to all creation, to all humanity. Let your mind flow back hundreds, thousands of years past, and imagine this earth as your ancestors knew it, here in this beautiful place. Imagine the wind, the sun, the rain, how the trees sway, the tides rise and fall. Imagine the joy, the laughter, and the love. Believe that you are supported in this place by the beauty that surrounds you and the spirit of your ancestors. Believe that you are connected to your ancestors, connected to each other, connected to future generations. If you notice your mind wanders too far, simply bring it back to the breath. Breathe in, you are loved. Breathe out, you are happy. Bring your awareness to your nose and the breath flowing into your nose, into your body, circling around and coming back out through your nose, taking with it any toxins or tensions. Your body is relaxed. You are at peace. You are here now. Breathe and just be. Become aware once again of your whole body, resting comfortably in your chair, your feet on the floor, the light against your eyelids. Become aware of the space around you, the sounds, the smells, the air on your skin. When you feel ready, go ahead and move your body. Prepare to wake up, relax, and energize. And in your own time, slowly open your eyes and come out of the meditation. Bring only good energy with you, holding on to the strength and beauty of